X.
You mentioned Hannibal and the Punic Wars, and I have here quote on Latin, which will I try to pronounce from Cato. Ceterum censeo Carthaginem esse delandam. Or, by the way, I think that Carthage must be destroyed. Romans were obsessed with maybe with Carthage more than any other state. They were fighting with maybe Persians or something. So, and you mentioned the Battle of Cannae, right? And how do you see this conflict between Carthage, Hannibal, and between Roman? Because, as you said, Hannibal didn't want to destroy them; he wanted to negotiate, and in the end, Carthage got destroyed.
And that would be a great movie, the fall of Carthage, in the final third Punic War.
Yes. There's so much. You look at history and you keep thinking, "Oh, I'd love to see that on screen." It could, backdrop for a story, and just to try and do it. They might get lots of things wrong, but it's like the Oliver Stone Alexander movie. There's lots of it that's just a bit strange, but there are a few scenes that are just, you think, yeah, that's close to right. That really looks close to how I imagine it anyway. Like the Battle of Gaugamela they do there is very well done. It's the Punic Wars. I mean, it's an interesting struggle because, again, we forget that when the first war starts, the Romans are just a power in Italy. They're not the empire they're going to become. And we know they're going to do that. And we know they're going to be around for a long time, but they just seem another Italian state. They've grown. But even that first Punic War, the one that's fought mainly around Sicily, because it's not so well described in such detail by our sources, we forget the losses the Romans suffer mainly through their fleets being wrecked at sea. They build warships and they're good at fighting them. They're just not very good at sailing them. And they don't really understand the power of the weather. But they suffer, tens of thousands of loss of dead year after year. And yet they keep going. And they keep on building another fleet and another fleet. They then treat the Carthaginians. It's one of the problems. They don't quite know how to treat the Carthaginians, because if they were an enemy they defeated in Italy, they could just absorb them. But Carthage is too big for that, and it's too far away. So they treat Carthage very much as an inferior after that war. And that's clearly the cause of this second war, is that people like Hannibal and his father resent the Romans pushing them around. The Romans sort of seize Corsica and Sardinia because they can. From the Carthaginians, and basically say, well, if you don't like it, fight us. And they know the Carthaginians aren't at that stage in a position to fight them. But the thing Hannibal does is really scare the Romans. They are terrified. And if you think Alexander the Great can conquer the Persian Empire in 3 big battles, some sieges, Hannibal inflicts worse losses on the Romans, and they won't quit. They will not give in. And, the commander who's blamed, Varro, at least gets blamed in the sources for the defeat at Cannae, when 50,000 Romans and allies are killed in a day, and another, nearly 20,000 captured. Out of your entire adult male population eligible for military service is about 700,000 when the war starts. And you've already lost badly in some of the earlier battles. So this is, these are really significant losses. And as I say, 1/3 of Rome's Senate, 100 out of 300, more than 100 are dead. People you knew, people who are making the decisions, people you sit next to at meetings of the Senate. So you would think most normal states would at this point negotiate and say, okay, because, peace in the ancient world, they have this tendency to declare, the Greeks are very fond of this, they'll sign a peace treaty and declare 20 years peace between us, or even 100 years peace. And whatever happens, they never have that period of peace. Either they start the war most often before, or very occasionally the peace treaty lasts a bit longer. But the number that's on the paper, on that document, bears no relation at all to what will actually happen. But that's how ancient states operate. Yes, you lose some prestige, you lose some money, but the Romans just won't accept that. And another big difference, if you look at when the Persians come to invade Greece in 490 BC or 480 BC, there are exiles from Athens, from Sparta, with the Persian army and advising the Persian king. There's never a Roman serving with the Carthaginians. If you can't be politically successful at Rome, then it's not worth being successful anyway. You live and die with the Republic. So they do identify very strongly. And given that, you can look, these Romans are not by this time ethnically all Roman, all Latin. They're a mixed bag of Italians, but they feel that they belong to this republic, this state, and they'll fight and they'll die for it, and they will just keep going. And in the end, they wear Hannibal down. And that's that fear that just over 50 years later, that Cato will represent. Carthage nearly destroyed us. That's the memory. We were on the brink of, that was it. The Republic would be gone. Rome would be gone forever. If we let them grow prosperous again, they could do it. They could come back. So that's, they move to destroy, and the Romans make it harder for themselves than they should, because their army isn't as efficient by this time. So it takes them 3 years to win a war against, it's very one-sided in other respects. But even so, they've got to do it. And Carthage as a political entity is gone. It will not be there. It will return as a Roman colony a little bit later. But that's the Carthage that then emerges is very much Roman. So I think that contributes to this Roman sense of every war is a battle to the death, because the Second Punic War, the struggle with Hannibal, really did feel like it to them. You can sense that you look at the losses, you look at the devastation, you can understand how, again, we know that they will keep going and they will win, but they didn't at the time. So, it's clearly a traumatic event that has long-term repercussions in Roman society, the Roman economy, all of these things, but also their mentality. You do feel that they're scared and they react like a lot of frightened people. They really want to take that threat out forever.
So they wiped them off the planet.
As you do.
We stay genuine, uncensored, and unscripted, and we always will, as we have to order our usual. Share us and subscribe us, and stay tuned until the next Wednesday.